the whole story about the impossible dream. I'm going to start with Shantanu, who's probably seen more education deployments than I will see in my lifetime, okay? And Shantanu, I'm going to ask you, start with an open-ended question. Are we chasing the impossible dream here, trying to transform education? Because I also hear people tell me that, you know, ऐसे ही होता है, आप देखा 2 साल बाद ऐसे ही रहेगा, no, so I just want to know, are we chasing the impossible dream, or am I just caffeinated and just not, optimism is misplaced?
Yeah, the short answer is I think you're caffeinated. We are not chasing an impossible dream at all. And I think the data is out there for all of us to see of how many millions of kids in schools in India are now learning either with technology or through technology. But I understand, Suresh, where the question is coming from. Why do you even mention this thing about the impossible dream? I think one part of that is the challenge of scale, right? So we have 1.5 million schools in India, and people shudder to think, if we are going to put smart classes in all these schools, how many do we need? Do we have the funds to be able to even achieve this? So I completely understand where the question is coming from. But I think there is hope on the horizon. So when Rajiv got up on stage and said, there is 1% PC penetration in India, as the chief executive of EduComp, I think, wow, that's an amazing opportunity, and it's especially amazing for 2016, because now the depth and the width of the solutions that we can bring to the table, which are extremely low cost in terms of the cost per student, it's never been this exciting for technology in education as it's in 2016. So I think that's very positive. So now let's be very specific and look at what can be done to achieve this so-called impossible dream. Now, if you want to put a laptop in the hands of every child, somebody is going to come forward and somebody has to pay for it. And I think it's a matter of perspective. The Indian government is already spending, and I learned this from Rajiv's speech, 4 lakh crores a year in education. Now, if we change the perspective a little bit, we don't say our IT budget is going to be very high. Let's look at the IT budget as an integral part of the education budget itself. But to do that, you have to first measure ROI. We have a certain model of education in India today. We have classrooms. They need capital expenditure to build. They have furniture. We have teachers. Now with the 7th Pay Commission, we are going to be handing out a handsome paycheck to every teacher in India. And then we have the whole computational model of education, where we bring out education outcomes through smart classes or laptops and tablets and technology immersive education. How do these two stack up? I think we don't have the time to go into the data, but I think the data that's coming out of the computational model of educational outcomes is not a difference of 1:2 or 1:5. It's a difference of 1:100. So what I'm putting on the table is investment in computational technology-driven models for education outcomes gives you a 1:100x better ROI. Now, just take my word for it for a second. Now, how do we look at our education budget? What part should flow into technology or technology-aided learning? I think the answer is very clear. And because the question is not simply stopping at the fact that we need to bring technology in education, the question is much bigger. Because our educational dreams look impossible right now. Not just the dreams of technology in education. And today's news report in Times of India says there are 8.6 crore kids that are not even inside a school. Okay, so the question, if I may be allowed to modify, is not that the technology dream is impossible, is our education dream impossible? And if our education dream looks impossible, the better way to achieve that is to bring technology to the table, start putting in some money behind educating those 8.6 million, because we are never going to be able to build classrooms fast enough.
Look, I started this journey with Shantanu. I want to come back and end with Shantanu here. With a 2-part question, Shantanu, and since you are between this group and lunch, so you be warned. Number 1 is, where do you see this concept of lifelong learning going? Fundamentally, we're all students, we're all going to be learners. Where do you see lifelong learning going? And then share with all of us collectively, because you're the person with most experience here. What is one thing that makes you optimistic today as you leave this podium that we're gonna make this happen collectively?
Sure, thanks, Suresh. I think if you look at the word lifelong learning, okay, there's two parts to it. One is life, okay, and one is long. So certainly life is getting longer, okay? But what is more interesting is that the need for remaining economically empowered for a longer time is also becoming more important today. And thirdly, if you look at the future of jobs, the future of jobs has been amazingly disrupted. So 60% of jobs today are going to cease to exist. So lifelong learning is not just a metaphor or a phrase. Lifelong learning, if you're not going to be lifelong learning, okay, you're going to be obsolete. You're not going to have a job. You will die poor, whatever. So I think it's really, really important that we look at lifelong learning as something that needs to be institutionalized in two ways. One is the cognitive aspect of lifelong learning. And that's where projects like Swayam, etc. come in. Because now you have these thousands of courses out there that can help anybody reskill or rather reinvent themselves from an employability perspective. So that's absolutely a very, very exciting direction to go. Or if you don't want to do that, you want to be an entrepreneur, you have the Yuva program. And there are many other programs like this. So I think the world is thinking in the right direction with respect to that. But there is also another aspect of lifelong learning, and that is the mental framework of what it means to be a lifelong learner. And that journey has to start inside the primary school classroom rather than when you're 25 years old or when you're 45 years old. And I think that's where technology actually plays a super important role, because the future of the classroom itself has got amazingly disrupted today. Because the skills that we need to build are not the old skills of rote learning, and we all know that, so I'm not going to repeat that. Okay, but the skills of tomorrow, we all know what 21st century skills are. But the question is, how are we going to put that enabling framework? And that framework has 4 important words. One is learning has become democratic. So you cannot force a model of learning that applies to every student in the classroom. That's one. Second, it has to be flexible. So learning has to be at the pace of the cognitive and the mental ability of the student. And the third most important thing is it has to be inclusive. And the word inclusive was more important for a country like India than probably any other country in the world. So I think the whole concept of lifelong learning, more important than ever before, but we need to think more deeply about lifelong learning, because it needs to start from a mental construct, what it means to be a learner right from the primary school classroom. Your second part of your question, Suresh, is what is the most exciting thing? And I think the most exciting thing is that finally in education, we are cutting the cord from the fact that we need to go into a physical space to learn. So for me, what is supremely exciting is that it's all going to be about cloud, about internet, about low-cost access devices. It's going to be about big data. It's going to be about analytics. And most importantly, what does all of this mean together? You put all the jargon together, end of the day, it's going to be very, very personalized. For the past 1,000 years, we have adopted in the whole world a mass market model of education. That is being deconstructed, that is being demolished, that's being broken. And the model of today, the model of tomorrow, is every learner must learn to maximize his or her potential. And that for me is extremely exciting, it's historic. Thank you.